a golf course. 3 or 4 holes are actually inside of the racetrack. A lot of things taking place here on the property. Kid Rock is going to have a concert tomorrow night, so you won't want to miss out on all of the festivities. And of course, Jeff Gordon, Tony Stewart, two biggest names in the sports are hanging out. They're going to race on Sunday. And with more, let's go to Mike Massaro.
Well, Rick, imagine being in retirement and then having to come out. The very first race you're in, it's about 95 degrees outside the race car. Who knows how hot it's going to be inside the race car, but that's the case for Jeff Gordon. So one of the obstacles he'll have to face this weekend is dealing with the heat and being conditioned for it. With that, the team has a brand new air-conditioned cool box for his helmet. Jeff Gordon, however, does not normally like to practice with a cool box, like to practice with a lighter helmet. So in first practice, he's not using this helmet. But this helmet will be the one he'll use in second practice. The team wants to make sure he uses it so that there are no unknowns going into the race. He knows exactly what he's going to expect during the course of the event, and they can dial out any potential flaws here in the second practice. But right now, he's with his normal light helmet, but in happy hour later today, he's going to put on this helmet and try to science it out, get to understand it a little bit better so that he can deal with the heat on Sunday.
Yeah, Mike, this racetrack is notorious for being exceptionally hot inside the race car. The car sits so low to the ground, very little air goes underneath the race car. It's going to be exceptionally hot on Sunday, and the inside of these race cars is going to really be hot. Go back and think about last year. I remember after the Xfinity race, all those drivers, how tired they looked, how hot they were. After the Cup race, the same thing. So coming back from being on vacation, over almost 300 days out of a race car, and going to this racetrack is going to be a physical test for Jeff Gordon.
You mentioned heats. Let's talk a little more about that as we look at our NASCAR Heat Evolution animation.
And Rick, really the reason why the cars run hot at a track like this is because they stay so close to the ground. The teams work on the body pitch, how high they want to run the car. So you see right here, the splitter's off the ground, the air is dirty. So these teams are going to put the splitter right down along the racetrack. That makes front downforce and makes the air going underneath much cleaner.
Yeah, so then you go to the back of the car, and you said you want to run the back of the car up or down. Well, you run the back of the car up, it lets air go underneath the car. If you lower the back of the car, now all the air goes around the side of the car. It's a balance between what makes the overall grip. Does making the air not go underneath the car, even though you lower the rear spoiler, does that make it drive better, or do you want the spoiler up in the air? Historically, you want it down, and that makes the car that much hotter.
Take a look at the temperature inside of the car with Tony Stewart, 113 degrees.
Yeah, this is an hour and a half practice.
Yeah.
This is an hour and a half practice where he hasn't been on the racetrack he's only been on the racetrack for 22 laps. So we're going to see that continue to climb, and it is hot. Now I will say, the car gets the hottest it's ever going to sit right now. When you come in after a run and you sit in the garage, all that heat gets soaked into the car, and it is a furnace in there. So if you sat there and watched it, I think that temperature should continue to climb.
One of the interesting things I wanted to ask you guys, when we were looking at Jeff Gordon inside the 88, it's got to be a totally new look for him. And the fact that now we have digital dashes, and the switches are probably in different places than what he would normally want in a car. So is that a learning experience as well, to try to learn, okay, what do I get on my dash? Where are the switches for the things I'm normally used to in my car, but it's different because it's Dale's car?
Yeah, you can only change so much. You know, you can put Jeff's seat in and get Jeff's steering wheel. But, you know, the car is still built for Dale Earnhardt Jr., and there's some things you're going to have to adapt. And the biggest issue is just things change. You know, things change over time, how the switches are labeled, how they're put. So it'll be interesting to see. I think without any issues, it won't be a big problem in normal operation. But if they do have anything they're going to have to overcome, an electrical issue or something like that, it'll be maybe a little bit more difficult for Jeff if it's outside the ordinary.
I think the big challenge is going to be pit road speed. You know, learning how the digital dash works with pit road speed and your speed indicators, I think that will be the biggest adjustment. But you can set it similar to what you're accustomed to with your tachometer, but still, it is going to be different.
Less than a minute to go in practice. This first practice for the Sprint Cup Series. We'll have another practice about an hour from now. We look at the current conditions as it's coming up on 3 o'clock here, Eastern time. 91 degrees is the temperature. They say it feels like 101, and we just saw inside of Tony Stewart's car, it was 113. Xfinity race and the Cup race. And a year ago, we saw guys getting out of the car in the Xfinity race, which is a shorter race than the Cup race, and they were thoroughly exhausted getting out of the car and then sitting right down next to the car because they really couldn't stand any longer. It was a very difficult race for a lot of drivers, and it's supposed to be warmer this weekend. There's the red and black flags being displayed, ending the first practice of the day for the Sprint Cup Series. The historic Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Kevin Harvick will bring the number 4, Jimmy John's Chevrolet, back to the attention of his crew, Rodney Childers. In the group, Kevin Harvick was 4th fastest in this practice session. As we take a look at the speeds, Jimmy Johnson went out early and posted the fastest lap. His first lap of the day. He put 17 laps on the car when he was out there running, trying to get a feel for it. Denny Hamlin, on the other hand, his 15th lap was his fastest. He was second quickest in that session. Casey Kane, drivers like Casey Kane need to have a good points day, need to find a little more speed. He ends up 11th in the practice session. Jamie McMurray down there at 18th. Ryan Blaney, 21st. Greg Biffle, 22nd.
It's very difficult to look at these speeds. Just a lot of different ways to approach this practice. As we see David Ragan in 34th, Cole in 36. You know, some teams made qualifying runs, some were only in race trim, so definitely different approaches to this practice.
Again, Jeff Gordon subbing for Dale Earnhardt Jr. was in the top 10 in speeds, 9th fastest in that first session. Again, Tony Stewart making his final start in the Cup Series this weekend. Coming up next on NBCSN, it's Xfinity Series final practice with Dave Burns, Kyle Petty, and DJ.